the cost of a calorie today
Yeah.
versus even 100 years ago in North America versus, if you go back to these populations, can you share some insight?
Yeah, right. So they go out and they spend a lot of their energy foraging. And, you can think about this in different ways, but a hunter-gatherer can get between 1,000 and 2,000 calories an hour, depending on what they're going after and if it's a good day. But that's the ballpark. Let's say 1,500 calories an hour, just as an average. The typical blue-collar worker here in the States, not working a special job, a median income job in manufacturing, could take the wages from an hour's work and go buy 20,000 calories of food easily. I mean, we're talking like 20,000 calories of like a normal stuff you might put in the refrigerator, not something weird or crazy. 20,000 calories of normal food. So you go from a context where food is actually kind of hard to get, 1,500 calories an hour, to 20,000 calories an hour. And now you're just, even if you don't experience it this way, it is nonetheless true that you are swimming in calories all the time. Making it that much harder to make good decisions about what you eat.
Absolutely. And one of the areas, we see when people are consuming ultra processed food, all the bacteria in the gut microbiota start to shift. And Nick West out in Australia talked to me about some research around the calories that these gut bacteria produce. And some people can be more, some people can be less. What are your thoughts on the effects of that? And might that be significantly different between those hunter-gatherers, I would presume, compared to someone who's obese in the typical standard setting?
It could be. We know that there are microbiome differences for sure. Some of work's been published for the Hadza, for example, the group I've worked with. I think it's an open question. It's something we're actually trying to look into. How many of those calories that otherwise are just sort of pass through you are your microbiome bacteria able to scavenge and turn into short chain fatty acids from your fiber or whatever and get into your bloodstream? God, that'd be really exciting to know. I don't think we know yet, but I agree. We need to get that sorted out. It's a big area to look at next.
Awesome. And I imagine with the Hadza, what's the fiber intake like with that group? 50, 60, 70, or is it more than that?
We think it could be 80 grams a day.
Wow.
Does that sound right? I think I have that right.
Yeah. We struggle to get 30 in North America.
Yeah. It's tough. So they eat this really, really fibrous tubers, and they eat them, but they're so fibrous that you don't usually just eat it. You usually like chew it and suck all the starch out of it. And then you spit out the quid.
Yeah.
And so somebody's dissertation someday is going to be going around collecting quids and figuring out exactly how much, because, obviously it looks like you spit out all the fiber, but there's no way you do. You end up breaking it down and chewing. Yeah. You eat a lot of fiber that way, but how much, that's a bit of an estimate. So
it's like baseball players chewing tobacco, although much healthier version. And, if we kind of zoom out again and talk today, obviously we hear a lot about plant-based versus animal-based, and in different hunter-gatherer societies, you write about how there's a lot of misnomers around the diets and actually how those diets change based on latitude. Can you speak to that?
Oh, sure. So, one of the funniest things I think doing this kind of work, being someone who has the privilege to actually go and work with hunter-gatherers is to be told by people on Twitter how hunter-gatherers eat. I always find that really funny. And if you were to just pay attention to Twitter, you would find out that hunter-gatherers eat only meat all the time, and that's all. But that version of a paleo diet or something isn't actually what we see at all.
No.
Hunter-gatherer diets are really pretty balanced between plants and animals, and more than that, they really vary over time. So day to day, week to week, even year to year, there can be really big shifts in the calories you're getting from plants versus from animals versus from honey. Honey is actually a really big contributor of calories for the Hadza and other tropical groups, even temperate populations. It's not until you get into the Arctic, well above 50 degrees latitude, and that you see people who are really heavily meat based. And most of us aren't from there. There are some folks who are, population. But most not. Even this is another one I just saw on Twitter. Somebody said, I pointed this out to someone, and they said, but so you mean that my Northern European ancestors were eating 80% meat? Cool. And I thought, well, okay, actually, your Northern European ancestors got there about 5,000 years ago from a group called the Yamnaya, which were hanging out on the steppe in southern Kazakhstan and that part of Central Asia. And so actually they were eating plenty of plants and everything, and they came in and displaced a bunch of hunter-gatherer groups there. So, this whole question about your identity and where you're actually from, very, very few of us are from, a very far north population. Some people are, but very, very few.
And, you also talk about the genetic adaptations of, we would think that these individuals would be more ketogenic with a protein and a really high fat diet. But there's some, evolutionary shifts that occur that would be not the direction you would think, right?
That's right. Yeah, in the Inuit and other First Nations people that we see in the Arctic, who really have been there for, as far as we can tell, for 6,000-7,000 years. There have actually been really strong selection on the pathway that allows you to turn. So you make ketones when you are breaking down fatty acids predominantly for your energy. And so what happens is one of the molecules that gets kicked out of that pathway is a ketone body, and your body can use those. Can use ketones for energy, but there's a whole set of pathways that have to happen for that ketone body to get kicked out. And one of the enzymes that's critical for that in that pathway is actually, there's selection against the gene that makes that enzyme, against the form of the gene that makes that enzyme. So they actually can't go into ketosis, a lot of these groups, even though they are the poster child for the ketogenic diet.
Yeah, and from an evolutionary standpoint, is obviously some type of protective mechanism there, or what would you speculate?
So somebody pointed out to me, and that it might not be about the ketones exactly, that there might be some other role that enzyme plays. And so I don't think that we know exactly what's going on there. If it's, is this selection that happened because of ketosis and ketogenesis specifically, or as a byproduct of something else? So I think the jury is still out. I don't want to speculate too much.
Yeah.
But I would say that what you can say is that here is a population that was all set up to be the perfect ketogenic population.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, that wasn't a strong enough draw to maintain ketogenic ability there, right? They actually got pushed away.